Hello, everybody. This is Daaro DS, and welcome to another episode of Higurashi, When They Cry. And this is Chapter 1, Onikakushi. We are very close to finishing this visual novel chapter off. Holy smokes, it's been a long time, but I'm planning to continue and head on to Chapter 2 very shortly. And I hope you guys will follow me to the very end. It's been quite a while. Yes, I know. But here we go. So, last episode, we went back to school after having a surprise visit from Rena and Mion, as they gave us a warning. A warning through a needle, sewing needle, found in one of the mochi pieces that they got from both of them. And I believe that one was from Rena. We found the one that was from Rena, guys. And we went back to school because we were harassed by Mion. Like, she'd hate for him to be miss school again. So we went back to school and found out that they, I don't know, nothing really happened in anything creepy, but Keiichi is having misdirected thoughts about his friends, thinking they're out to kill him, and probably for good reason. But he doesn't want to believe it, but he has so much proof. He has pretty much toned himself into thinking that Oyashiro-sama's curse is true, and that their friends might not be their friends after all. But we're going to find out as Keiichi has returned home after school after pretty much ditching all of his friends. But let's just continue. Dinner was usually bland. And just gonna click. It had no flavor or aroma. The miso soup that had normally tantalized my appetite instead tasted like nothing but boiled water. Dad was eating with us that night. It was a rare occurrence at this household. When he got into his work, he ate and slept on his own schedule. My dad never cared about the time. Since my dad was at the dinner table, it either meant he had just reached a good point to take a break, or he was in a slump.
とにかく作家のモチベーションってものを理解してないんだよ、彼は。
タイアップの話だって口約束なんでしょ？そんなに反りが合わないならきっぱりお断りしたら？
助け合いの世界だからお互い様だとは思うんだけど、これじゃ仕事にな。
I wasn't able to pick out much of my mom and dad's conversation, but I could tell it wasn't a very pleasant topic. That, of course, made the disgusting food even less appealing. Staring listlessly at the exchange between my parents, my mind wandered off into the same thought process I had going all day long. Friends close to me. No, they used to be friends. But I could no longer trust them right now. I was greatly lacking in allies. People I trusted. People I could depend on when push came to shove. They were something I just didn't have. Having just one ally would have been incredibly reassuring in the currently hopeless situation I was in. I had put down my chopsticks and looked over at my parents, who were still talking about work. The first course of action that came to my mind was to tell my parents everything. Currently, there wasn't a single person in Hinamizawa I could trust 100%. That meant the only people I could trust were my parents. But if I told them everything that happened up until now, would they understand? Rena, for example. That neighborly Rena, who was just so diligent in looking after me, came to get me every day, and sometimes brought over a share of what she made. How could I explain that she wanted to kill me? No matter how I explained, it would probably be difficult for anybody to comprehend. My somewhat eccentric dad wouldn't understand, and my high-strung mom would probably drag me off to a psychiatrist in the blink of an eye. Sadly, that was the amount of trust I had existed in our relationship. Even if they did come to understand, what could they possibly do? unless they could uncover the truth. Unless they could uncover the truth, they would be able to protect me. No, by just informing them of these unnecessary things, I'd be putting my parents in danger as well. Considering that the victims of the past incidents were often married couples, I couldn't even joke about that. For the entire Maebara family to have an incident or just vanish into thin air, it was easily possible in Hinamizawa. That was more important here than that knowing something unnecessary put you in danger. The most unsettling question was, how did they know that I knew? As long as they didn't know, my parents might not fall victim. That was one way to think about it, I guess. At least it was like that in my case. After I found out, things started becoming odd. In other words, it meant by the following. As long as my parents didn't know anything, nothing else would happen to them. Which means that this house would be a safe haven as long as my parents were in. I knew that these were just assumptions based on the conjecture on the top of conjecture. Wanting this house to be a safe haven was the pinnacle of my weak-willed method of thinking. I had to concede that it was not a simply safe. It was only safer than outside. I knew that I couldn't rely on my parents. No, I couldn't risk getting my parents involved. Then the only person who I could be my ally would be Oishi-san. Him, and him alone. He was the only person who understood the situation I was in. He didn't care so much about my safety, but he was, without a doubt, passionate about solving this case. It was a bit frustrating. Oishi-san was basically the whole reason I was in this mess. Now, to get out of it, I had to rely on him. Meaning, it was all according to his devices. It was just my job to look appetizing while bobbing in the waves as bait. Then, when the fish started gathering around, Oishi-san would pull up the big haul. It was slightly infuriating, but even I thought it was the best course of action. So then what should I do? Patience was the first rule of fishing. Just keep waiting until the fish actually bites. But I wasn't simply bait. There were lots of ways for me to struggle before being devoured. When they struck, I needed to somehow dodge just enough and tag out to Oishi-san. No question, it was going to be hard. The timing to bring Oishi-san in would be difficult. He was in the city, not Hinamizawa. So if I phoned him in at any moment of need, it would take him about 30 minutes to reach me. So I needed to run away for those 30 minutes. For example, if we set up a rendezvous point for dire situations or something, I'd just have to hide out until Oishi-san arrived.
よし、少し見えてきたぞ。
I was still being chased around in the dark by the boogeymen. But now I knew which way to go. I would never have imagined that this would be so reassuring. Oh yeah. It would probably be the best if I had a concealed weapon for when things got rough. Typically, that would call for a switchblade. But that wasn't too reassuring for combat. Also, since it was recognized as a weapon by the public, that wasn't good. Really, when the time comes, a long weapon like a bat would work in my favor. I remembered there was a metal bat at school. I would be confident with that when push came to shove. If I pretended that I was practicing my swings, then it wouldn't be suspicious for me to carry it around. I could go to school early tomorrow and secure it. Just possessing a weapon may be enough to deter them. Also, one more thing, insurance. It could be something like a note or a memo. I could write down everything that happened as a sort of journal. In case I suddenly vanished, the journal wouldn't be left behind. With my journal in his possession, Oishi-san would be able to avenge my death. I left my parents engrossed in their conversation about work and went back to my room. I tore out a piece of paper from my notebook and made my way to my desk. Last time I wrote in a journal was for summer homework in elementary school. In the off chance of something bad happening, the police would use my diary as a lead. So I should only write down the facts. How should I start? I jotted down my thoughts as they came. I, Keiichi Maebara, am in fear for my life. It made me laugh nervously. It was a line that showed up often in detective stories. I had never even dreamed that I would be in the type of situation where I'd be writing it myself. I do not know why they are after my life. Rena and the others were suspicious, but I had no proof, and that's why I couldn't write anything more. I laughed wryly at myself for writing such a passage draped in mystery. Would the police be able to get the hint from reading this anemic passage? I could only pray that they would. What I prayed for the most, though, was that this journal would never need to play its part. Here I laughed nervously. It was too simple, so I wrote down one more line I just thought of. The only thing I do know is that it has to do with Oyashiro-sama's curse. Was that too much? I probably shouldn't write any more than that. If I wrote any more, then it would seem like I was just delusional. In order to appear to the reader that the person who had written was of sound mind, I chose not to write anything else at this point. I just needed to add more as I learned more about the truth. I folded the paper as I thought about a place to hide it. By hiding it somewhere obvious, there was a chance that they would uncover it instead. On the other hand, if it was too obscure of a location, then there was a risk of nobody finding it at all. In the end, I decided to knock off my clock, take the clock off my wall and stick my folded note in the back of which with scotch tape. In the end, after that, I put the clock back to its normal position. Yeah. It didn't look like anything was hidden behind it. Now I needed to set it up with such that if anything happens to me, my parents could find it. I looked at it from countless different angles until I was satisfied. I made my way downstairs. My parents were still talking about work. It didn't look like it was going to end anytime soon, so I cut in.
話中ごめん。ちょっと聞いてもらっていいかな。
I never started off a conversation like that before, so my parents were both startled. They stopped talking and turned towards me.
どうしたの、ケイチ？
お願いがあるんだけど、聞いてほしいんだ。もしもだよ。
圭一、急ぎの話じゃなきゃ後にしなさい。お父さんとお母さんはちょっと今、急ぎの話をしてるんだ。
I didn't think their talk was more urgent than mine. In any case, I stated my request.
もしもだよ。俺が死んだらさ。
Both my parents' eyes went wide as saucers.
死んだらさ、俺の部屋にある時計、あれを棺に入れてほしいんだ。
If they did that, then they'd probably find it. My memoir. If both my parents remained wide-eyed, not even moving an inch. I couldn't blame them.
あの時計、工作の授業で作ったお気に入りなんだ。頼むよ。
どうしたの、ケイチ？ 何かあったの？
Mom was finally able to ask me the question and gaze. Of course, this was a normal response for when someone's son suddenly asked about a subject like this. I felt bad about making them worry, but right now I just wanted them to think about the clock in my room. With the awkward mood leaving the room in silence, I decided to go back up to my room.
俺さ、明日は早くに学校に行きたいから、もう寝るよ。おやすみ。
Saying only that, I left the living room. I needed to get to school early tomorrow and secure that bat. I should make today the last day I went to school with Rena. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Mom call my name, but I pretended not to hear her. It wasn't something I could talk about with my parents. If I talked about it, it would only make things more dangerous. The fight that had begun was mine and mine alone. I couldn't rely on anybody. I wouldn't be killed. Not when I still knew nothing. Not feeling so hot. New tips acquired. Achievement unlocked. Chasing shadows. You guys can't see that, but I can. Let's see all our tips, our new tips. Let's see what we got.
最近、圭一くんの元気がないね。機嫌が悪いのかな？
さーて、どうしたんだろうね。恋の病にでもかかってるんじゃないの？
みーちゃん、それ飛躍しすぎ。どう思う？
さあね。ケイちゃんひょっとして、かな？
わかんない。
あの日、ケイちゃんと車で話してたの。中年のでっぷりした男だったんでしょ？
うん、間違いない。
大石のやつ、ケイちゃんに何を吹き込んでるのかな？
真剣そうだったよ。圭一くんは顔面蒼白だった。
あのね、レナはよく知らないだろうけど、実はあいつ、お社様の使いなんだよ。
Come on.
何の話？
あいつが現れるとね、必ず鬼隠しが起こるの。
あれ？そうなの？
おととし、リカちゃんのお母さんが受水したでしょ？その直前に大石が尋問してたんだよ。
そういえば、サトシくんが転校する前にもいたね。
転校？レナはいいやつだよな。
で、今度は圭一くんの前に現れたんだ。じゃあ、圭一くんも鬼隠しになっちゃう
？An empty silence hung in the air. And then it was suddenly interrupted. I do not like that at all. This was the first time I'd ever woke up with such clarity. It was 5:59, just moments before my alarm would go off. I was amazed at the precision of my internal clock. I had made preparations for the next day of school before I went to bed. I changed quickly and descended into the deserted lower floor. It appeared that my mom was still asleep. Neither breakfast nor lunch was ready. Yesterday, I just unilaterally declared that I would be leaving early today, so it couldn't be helped. I slathered jam on some bread and topped it with some instant cocoa. Just as I was finishing up breakfast, Mom rose groggily from her slumber.
あら、ケイチ、今日は早いのね。学校の行事か何か？
別に。
Answering bluntly, I picked up my bag and stood after stuffing 2 slices of bread down my throat.
もう行くの？お弁当は？もうちょっと待ってくれないとできないわよ。
If I waited for her to make my lunch, then it would end up being the same time as usual. If I did that, it would raise the chances of me running into Rena and Mion on the way. Yes, from today onwards, I will be going to school alone.
今日はいいよ。
じゃあお昼はどうするの？
抜け出して商店で菓子パンでも買うよ。
そう。じゃあこれ、お昼代ね。ちゃんとレシート持ってくるのよ。
I took the 1,000 yen bill from Mom and slipped it in my pocket.
こんなに早いけど、レナちゃんたちもこんなに早いの？
いや、俺だけ。
レナちゃんには早く出るって伝えてあるの？
レナが来たら、ケイチは先に行ったって伝えてよ。
ちょっとケイチ、待ちなさい。
It's not that I didn't trust my parents. I just couldn't rely on them. They couldn't help me. I could only hope that they didn't get involved. It was safer that way. My mom's annoying face was cut off by the slam of the door. For the first time since I moved here, I headed down the road to school alone. Up until now, I had always walked down the same path the same time each day. So I always met with the same people at the same places. But today was different. I didn't meet the people I would normally, and nobody was at the places where I would normally meet them. Of course, Rena wasn't in the spot where we usually met, and there wasn't anyone at the spot where we would have met up with Mion. Away through the trees' shadows, the morning air, the brightness of the sun. It was a completely different morning from what I was used to. Without a doubt, it felt strange. It left me with the impression that I had destroyed an illusion Hinamizawa had set up for me before it had enough time to prepare all of the props needed to deceive me.
あら、ケイチ君。今朝は早いわね。みんなで早朝から待ち合わせ？
The person who called out to me was someone we'd always pass by as we were walking, as they took a walk along the edge of the fields. Her name was, I forgot. Of course, this wasn't a spot where we usually passed each other.
今朝は早くに目が覚めちゃったので、気分転換なんです。あまり気にしないでください。
I threw out a random excuse.
レナちゃんやミオンちゃんはどうしたんだい？今日は一人なの？
ええ、まあ。
I was being asked the same type of questions my mom was asking. So I answered them the same uninteresting, vague manner. It wasn't funny being asked where Rena was each time I passed someone, but maybe it was to be expected. It was because for so long we were always together, so amicably. Amicably. Even I felt that if I left my guard down, we would still be friends. Stop it, Keiichi. Don't think about that anymore. You spent all day yesterday thinking about how dangerous it was to go soft, didn't you? Beep beep! A car horn blared out from nowhere. Even though I was walking lost in thought, the horn was way too close. A mechanical behemoth barreled at me from behind, catching me completely off guard. By the time I turned around, the van hulking chassis was almost on top of me. I'd seen plenty of cars veer to the opposite shoulder to avoid pedestrians, but this car was doing the opposite. It felt like there was somebody on the opposite shoulder, and the van was swerving in my direction to avoid them. That blissfully ignorant train of thought delayed me from realizing that something much more important. That large mass was hurling right at me. Was it going to hit me? The inside of my head was instantly flooded by a painful cold liquid. That moment, the scene before me, no, time itself had frozen. In the silence of the frozen moment, I compared the van, so close that I had no way to dodge it, and my body, the upper half twisted awkwardly in order to look behind me. There was no way I could dive out of the way in my current position. If I lost focus now, this moment would unpause and I would probably be plowed over, caught in this silly pose. Bend my upper body over towards the paddy by the side of the road. If I bent far enough, I could get away with being hit in the side view mirror. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, the temporal stasis was shattered by the deafening sound of the van. The side mirror struck my shoulder, sending me spinning through the air like a top locked in my contorted position. Flash. Sent tumbling through the air, I crashed into the muddy paddy by the side of the road. My entire body was soiled and drenched. But the choice I had made in that instant was unmistakably for the best. I was covered in mud, but when the alternative was being hit by the car, it was the closest thing to being unscathed. Rushing out for the paddy, I had enough in me to gaze over at the stopped van and yell profanities at the driver. I'm not sure if he was able to see me, but the van sped off suddenly.
待てよクソこれってひき逃げって言うんじゃねえのかよ
I couldn't help but continue to yelling out profanities. The disgrace for being covered in mud hurt me more than any physical wounds. I slogged through the muddy paddy and made my way back to the road.
これって犯罪じゃねえのかよチクショー
Shit, I'll track you down and sue you. If I go looking for a van, I'm sure to find in this little village. The path I was on had rice paddies on either side, so it had become so narrow that one car could barely fit through. It wasn't a place you could tear full speed down in a car, let alone past pedestrians. Not only was it a narrow road, but this car now was closer to my side of the road than the other that went past me. Even as I cursed, I was desperately trying to suppress the dark cloud rolling up within me. This wasn't just a hit and run. That car just now was trying to run me over, wasn't it? Thinking back, I did feel like there had been a car creeping up on me slowly for a while now. That's right. As soon as I'd parted ways with a person taking a walk, I had that feeling the whole time. If I had wanted to pass me, it had no shortage of chances. Normally, I would have felt something suspicious and turned around sooner. But I was lost in thought, and now was kicking myself for not realizing it was there sooner. And then, when the path became narrow, and there was no one else in sight, he floored it. If I had hesitated, even for a moment, the result would have been no laughing matter. And the adrenaline rush from being nearly run over subsided. and the realization of just how terrifying the preceding events were sunk in. There was no doubt about it. That van was intentionally trying to run me over. A cold, vicious sweat seeped through my scalp and slid down my back before dribbling off. I struggled to avoid falling into a panic. There was still the possibility that this was really just an accident. Calm down, Keiichi. But also, don't be so naive, Keiichi. Being the lax will get you killed next time. You need to always be on your toes. Don't give them any openings. If my enemy was really out to kill me, the next time they would use a more reliable method. If the time came that I was acting like I was just now, getting covered in mud was the price I had to pay for my own naivety. Covered in mud without an injury. Not even a sprain. I guess this was what you call a silver lining. I began to walk again, this time cautiously. I wouldn't even show a hint of carelessness. I had suspected only Rena and the others up until now. No, it was because I had suspected them that I had believed that there was no other enemies. Oishi-san said so, didn't he? There was the possibility of a village conspiracy. Was I really mired so deeply in this situation that I had no choice but to try on and carry on as usual? It wouldn't be the safest just to hold myself up in the house? But the moment I abandoned my regular routine, everyone around me would also abandon theirs as well. That was just too horrifying of a thought. Right now, I recall the tales of Oishi-san told me when Hinamizawa was still called Onikakushi. A frightening tale of an entire village of demons hunting their prey, surrounding them, and eating them alive. One must not interfere with the demons. One must pretend not to see it. The enemy were numerous. The whole village. The villagers, with their unwavering faith in the curse, would do nothing to help me. A strong, sudden flash of sunshine made me slightly dizzy. I had no idea what was going on anymore. When I suspected it was the work of man, I would catch a glimpse of Oyashiro-sama's curse. And when I suspected it was Oyashiro-sama's curse, someone would poke their head out. What was coincidence? What was intentional? Who was my enemy, and who was just a bystander? No, what I really, truly wanted to know was how did I end up with the proverbial bullseye painted on my back? Eventually, an answer in a form only I could understand will appear. I couldn't care when that would happen, because until then, I cannot die. That alone fueled my resolve to fight, and will keep me alive. I remember seeing the metal bat in the gym storage shed, but there was a padlock on the door behind barring my entry. At the very least, I wanted to get my hands on it before anyone else had arrived at school. I circled around the school grounds impatiently. But all I could find were things like pieces of lumber, nothing that I could bring into the classroom easily. Then I had an epiphany. I could search inside the classroom. If it was something in the classroom to begin with, then there wouldn't be a problem. I could tell that everyone's indoor shoes were still in their lockers. Good thing I came early. Nobody else was here yet. I wondered what I could find in the classroom. I didn't think I could find an especially effective weapon like a bat. But it couldn't be helped at this point. Until the gym storage shed was opened, I needed to find a substitute. A lingering hint of naivety whispered that there was no way I'd be attacked at school. But such soft ideas would no longer protect me. To think that they were slowly making their way into parts of my life that I had once thought impenetrable. In the worst case, my own house might not be safe anymore. That was an incredibly frightening thought. But I believe that not considering the worst case scenario would have been more frightening. Anyways, I will survive. So long as I lived, then I will definitely be able to escape this labyrinth of nonsense. Definitely. My exploration of the classroom came to an impasse. That much was to be expected. There was no way there would be anything that would be a weapon in the classroom. In a case of emergency, there was probably nothing I could do but swing my own chair around. My gaze landed on the lockers that had come to be used for personal storage. The locker that Mion used to store a pile of games was among them. There was one for each person in class, all lined up. Of course, there was one for me as well. Oh yeah, there was supposed to be still a tracksuit in my locker. Seeing me covered in mud would be strange. I should go for a change later. But first I needed a weapon. If one of my classmates came, it would be hard to rummage through all the lockers. I swiftly began opening the lockers one by one. They were mostly filled with things like gym clothes, personal items, and umbrellas. An umbrella. If I couldn't find anything better, then this would have to be my weapon. I was about to give up on finding anything decent when I opened up a locker that held exactly what I wanted. It was, without a doubt, a metal bat. It was well worn and pretty beat up, but there was no doubt it was usable. In the locker reeked of mold, and there also hung a baseball uniform. It was probably a locker of a student in Pee Wee League or something like that. If that was the case, he probably asked for it back. At the time, I could hear voices of the children scuffling their way noisily in from the hallway. Amongst them, I could make out Rika-chan and Satoko.
おはようございますです。あらあらあら、今朝はお早いですわね、ケイチさん。
I nonchalantly hid the bat I was holding behind my back.
なんなんですの、その身なりは。泥だらけでしたよ。
ああ、まあちょっとあってな。すぐ着替えるから勘弁しろ。
With that said, I began taking off my clothes. Satoko began to blush, as I expected her to.
レディーの前でお着替えなんてしつけがなってませんことよ。
着替えをじーっと見てるレディーもしつけがなってないと思うぞ。男子は更衣室がないんだから諦めろ。
So, as Satoko feigned in disgust, she went into the hall, still blushing. Conversely, Rika-chan continued to stare at me, preparing to change.
リカちゃんもレディーなら着替えを見てるのは良くないと思うぞ。
僕はレディーじゃないですからいいのです。
Okay. She deliberately pouted and looked at me with upturned eyes.
じゃあリカちゃんも今からレディーだ。
レディーなら仕方ありませんです。
Rika-chan, appearing to be satisfied with being considered a lady, made her way to join Satoko out in the hallway. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, Rika-chan stopped by suddenly and turned back towards me.
ケイチは野球を始めますですか？
It seems like Rika-chan had noticed the bat.
ああ、ちょっとさ、体がなまってさ、ちょっと素振りでも始めようかなってな。
健康に気を使うのはとても良いことだと思いますです。
She was talking like an old lady, despite her appearance. After saying that, Rika-chan started to leave again, but stopped and looked back at me once more.
そのバット、なくさないでくださいね、です。
Seems like she already knew I took it out of someone's locker. There was no name on the locker door. I didn't know whose bat it was, but I would be borrowing it until they complained. It wouldn't be for long, just until the gym storage was opened. After suddenly changing into this tracksuit, I checked the time. I still had plenty of time before class began because I came so early. I took the bat in one hand and went out to the schoolyard. That was, of course, to practice my swing. I needed to make it known that I would always have my bat on me so I could practice my swing. At some point, the sunlight had become even stronger. Disregarding my classmates as they made their way to school, I took my position in the shadow of the school building. I wasn't the academic type and wasn't much of an athlete either. I might get muscle pain if I suddenly started swinging. I should at least start out with some warm-ups. I doubt anyone would think I was doing something out of the ordinary, which was the exact opposite of my actual mental state. I gripped the bat and swung lightly. The bat was no means light. The weight of it would make it a reliable weapon when I needed it to be. Of course, I could only pray at the moment I needed to use it as a weapon would never come. Just carrying it around would deter any attacks towards me. At least, that's what I hoped.
あれケイちゃんまだ何やってんの
Being bombarded by such a hysterical voice, I jumped.
ああ、ケイチくん、野球部だよ。野球部だよ。
It was Rena and Mion.
先に行ったって言われて驚いたけど、ケイちゃん、あんた何やってるわけ？
見てわからないかよ。素振りだよ。甲子園だよ。別にダイエットでもいいぞ。
ダイエットってケイちゃん、そんなに太ってたっけ？
ああ、知らなかったろ。実は三段腹なんだ。もちもちでタプタプなんだぞ。
もちもちでタプタプ。
レナ、変な想像しなくていいぞ。
To disrupt Rena from imagining something that vulgar, I ruffled her hair messily.
じゃあまあ、頑張って県大会を目指してちょうだいよ。おじさん応援してるわ。野球部の強い高校教えよっか。そこにいる左腕の亀田くんがすごいピッチャーなんだけどさ。頑張ってね。
Seems they've already taken me for a baseball nut, but oh well. Well, if I really did make it to the championship, it would be a cinch. After all, I'd be the pitcher and catcher. I pitch the ball and run past the ball and I just threw and change over to being a catcher in a burst of a super incredible explosive speed. I laughed dryly at the ludicrous image. Coming back to my senses, I smashed the bat against the ground.
さあ、何笑ってんだよ、俺。
I pounded the ground over and over. With each impact, the reverberation traveling through the bat stung my hands. If they smile at me like that, Ow. I don't allow anyone close to me. Don't trust anyone. No matter how many times I tell myself that. If they make me smile like that, Ugh. I already knew that quite well, that there were demons dwelling in my smiling friends. But I couldn't just believe that. Did that kind split personality really exist? Like how Rena confessed to the doctor that they were simply being possessed by Oyashiro-sama? In other words, I did a supernatural being like Oyashiro-sama really exist? And was it possessing everyone to try and kill me? Yeah, that would be wonderful. If only everyone were actually my friends all along, and everything was all just Oyashiro-sama's fault.
前原圭一のバカ野郎！だから！
I yelled out, drawing out all the power from the pit of my stomach, and raised the bat violently into the air.
甘えるんじゃねえ！
As I screamed out with all my might, I beat the metal bat in the ground over and over. With every impact, my weakness was being beaten down. Smash. Forget. Smash. Don't be soft. Smash. Know your enemy. Smash. Like hell I let them kill me. My shoulders are heaving up and down from my ragged breathing. I heard the first bell ring as I calmed down. I gasped with a sudden realization. That was the final bell. As I felt all the tension drained from me, I let out a deep sigh. My mind was in a muddled state for much of the entire day. I didn't feel like I was awake, but I didn't feel like I was asleep either. I couldn't say I felt especially comfortable, but I felt kind of a relief that the sanctity of the school, part of my daily life, had yet to be violated. How long would I have to keep on living like this? If I could only grit my teeth and bear with it as this living hell slowly gnawed away at me.
ケイチくん、やろうやろう。部活の時間なんだよ。だよ。
The sound of Rena's voice brought me back in my senses.
ほらほら、ケイちゃん、ぼーっとしない。机を寄せて寄せて。
Everyone was moving their desks together as usual. That's right. It was happy, fun club time. But I had no intention of taking part. I haphazardly stuffed the contents of my desk into my bag as I prepared to go home. It was a weak-handed gesture to avoid having to actually say, I'll be going home now.
なんだよ、ケイちゃん。今日も直帰なわけ？
Mion sounded quite disappointed.
気分が乗らないんだ。しばらくほっといてくんないかな。
The tone of the words that spilled from my mouth matched Mion's disapproving glare. It felt like the air in the room had dried out. Satoko looked like she was about to say something, but perhaps dissuaded by the mood, she swallowed her words and stayed silent. Nobody said a thing. I took that to mean that I could leave if I wanted. But the collective gaze of the four of them, like the tiny pins used to mount an insect in a display, held me in place. Rena was the one who cut through the heavy mood.
ケイチくん、やっぱり女の子と一緒に遊ぶのなんか嫌だったかな？かな？
She said it in such a melancholic tone that it sent a wave of pain racing through my heart. If this pain was going to kill me, I wanted it to be the soft part of me that could still feel pain. I tore at my chest, violently tearing out the pins that held me in place.
そういうわけじゃねえよ。
I'd only be hurting myself by saying anything more, so I swallowed my words. Cutting things off there, I turned away and exited the room. They didn't speak a word to me as I left. It was a long, dull trip back home, but I didn't lose focus. I firmly squeezed the grip of the bat, which was already soggy from sweat. Realizing that, I wiped it down with my sleeve. If something were to happen, I wouldn't want it to be slippery. Since this morning, I'd become especially sensitive to the presence of cars. Even while walking, my ears pricked up and sought out the threatening sounds and presences that would be closing in. And that was why I could hear it. Without a doubt, there were footsteps. Those footsteps had matched up perfectly with mine for a while now. From what I could sense, it was just one person. But I had no intention of being careless. Did they intend to follow me like the car this morning until we're at a good location to assault me? Then it wasn't a good idea to keep walking like this. I stopped walking and looked back. The wooded path, crowded with trees, responded with silence, as if there was nobody else there to begin with. But I wouldn't be fooled. I was certain footsteps were following me. And just as I stopped, the footsteps stopped as well. Meaning, the person following me wanted to keep their distance. That was, without question, proof that I was their target. I held my breath, wanting for that presence to panic and start moving again. The trees rustled with the sound of the wind. The Higurashi also joined in on the dissonant chorus, trying to throw my focus into disarray. I had 5 minutes. Have 5 minutes passed already? Or had I been like this for a whole 30 minutes? It was so hard to breathe that I might have suffocated. It seemed I would be the first one to panic. But I doubt he was lurking in the shade of the tree with bated breath. Then I'd make the first move. I fixed my grip on the bat. I raised it up to my shoulder to be ready to swing at any time.
おい、いるんだろそこに。
With all my might, I screamed at whoever was hiding in the shade of the trees. But the presence in the shade didn't budge. Until the moment I found them, they had no intention of revealing themselves.
分かってんだよ。そこにいるのはよ。
I screamed out angrily at them again, but even still they didn't move at all. Then I'll go over there myself. With all due vigilance, I approached step by step. Stepping into the tree's shadow, I saw a human figure there. That figure was curled up like a small animal.
レナ。
When she realized I had found her, her expression softened. She seemed apologetic, but wasn't going to speak a word.
なんか俺に用かよ。
I wouldn't accept that silence and screamed other questions at her.
別に、
Rena was in a panic with tears welling up in her eyes. But it was obvious that she had been following me.
部活はどうしたんだよ。
ケイチ君がお休みしたから、レナもお休み。
関係ないだろ。俺なんか気にしないで遊んでろよ。
だって、ケイチ君のこと心配で。
Thinking about how I'd been acting up until now, it wasn't hard to imagine that my behavior could have been perceived as strange. So Rena was concerned at a quick glance. That's how it would seem. But I wasn't going to let my guard down that easily. Even if that was really the case, she still wouldn't have to do something like try to tell me. She should have called out to me when I was leaving and gone outright with me. But Rena couldn't do that. She kept her distance from me and matched my walking speed. On top of that, she matched the sound of her footsteps and deviously tried to hide her presence from me. Then, after she realized I'd noticed that she was there, she held her breath as she tried hiding from me. She wore a timid expression that would force one to take pity on her. But, without a doubt, she was tailing me.
もうついてくんなよ。
She, still glaring at Rena, I continued walking onwards. After I walked for a bit, she ignored my command and began walking again, so I yelled at her once more.
ついてくるなって言ってるだろ。
だってレナの家も同じ方向だし。
じゃあレナが先を歩けよ。レナが見えなくなったら俺も歩く。
I moved out of the way and waved my bat violently to urge her forward.
レナはケイチ君と一緒に帰りたいな。
Making a pitiful expression, she meekly squeaked out the words in a voice that she knew would cut into my heart. That agitated me to no end. I knew it was a lie. If you wanted to go home together, then you should have called out to me. Now you're just blurting out random lies.
ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい。
It seemed that the seething anger within me was written all over my face. Even without me saying anything, Rena had understood what I was feeling inside.
分かったならほら、行けよ。
I swung the bat, urging her to walk again. Rena looked back and forth at me between me and the bat and started walking hesitantly, and stopped again.
早く行けよ早く。
行くからそのバットやめてよ。怖いの。
Rena guarded herself while pointing at me, holding the bat. She may have realized that I wasn't planning on using this bat for baseball. I lowered the bat, but still guardedly opened the way for her.
行けよ。これなら文句ないだろ。
There was nothing else that she could protest. She passed by me timidly so as to not set me off. As I watched her pass by, she stopped completely after having barely moved at all.
おい、立ち止まるなよ。
Then a powerful gust blew past us, barraging my face with dust. The dust got into my eyes and clouded my vision. While rubbing my eyes with my left hand, I swung blindly the bat, my right, protecting the small opening I had presented. But Rena didn't even try to attack during that opening. Attack me? No. She hadn't budged an inch. I could tell from the sound of her floating skirt in the wind. Her skirt settled, and so did the silence. At that moment, the voice inside me immediately warned me of impending danger. I was caught by surprise. The smell in the air had changed. Without me realizing it, the air around me suddenly felt like a calamity was about to befall me. It was like the air had suddenly become invisible concrete, like Rena and I were locked in this space. Rena didn't move an inch. Also unable to move, I stared at her back. Rena was the first to break the silence. Instantly, she altered her stance. I felt like I had just witnessed her shift from Rena into that other person who looked like Rena. But the voice was one I knew so well, which filled me with a kind of bewildering pity. Carelessly, I felt relief upon hearing that pitiful voice.
ごめんね。聞いてもいい？
Too shy to even turn around, Rena squeezed her voice out desperately. As she trembled.
なんだよ。
どうしてバットなんか持ってるのかな？
The question Rena asked was by no means unexpected.
俺が何を持ってたっていいだろ。
でも、昨日まで持ってなかったし。どうして突然
Why so serious?
別に突然でもいいだろ。俺がバットを持ってるとおかしいかよ。
だって圭一君、野球とかしない人だったでしょ？おかしいよ。
I couldn't tell what kind of answer she was looking for, and I was getting tired of answering her.
突然、野球がしたくなったんだよ。それじゃおかしいか？
おかしいよ。
She answered instantly, and that annoyed me slightly.
突然野球がしたくなった。素振りがしたくなったからバットを持ち歩いてる。それのどこが変なんだよ。
変。おかしい。絶対。なんで圭一君まで。
ぶつくさとうるせえやつだな。俺がスポーツに目覚めるのがそんなに変かよ。
I tried to sound a bit more threatening to end the conversation. Until my suspicions about Rena were cleared, I had no obligation to answer her questions.
ごめんね、ごめんね。そんなに怒らないで。
Rena still didn't turn around and spat words of apology, one after the next.
最後に一個だけ教えて。
これ以上話す気も教える気もねえよ。早く行けよ。
I yelled loudly at her, causing her to flinch, like she had been struck. Seeing in her such a pathetic state caused my heart to ache sorely. But even though she was afraid, she stubbornly kept herself from moving. Before I was able to threaten her again, Rena asked her final question.
なんでバットまで同じなの？
What did she mean by the bat was the same? I had no idea what she was talking about.
お前、何言ってんだ？
だから、なんでバットまで同じなのかなって。
何を言ってんだか全然わかんねえよ。もっとはっきり言え。
Even still, Rena didn't turn around. After inhaling deeply, she screamed.
だから、どうしてバットまでサトシ君と同じなの？
サトシって、え？
Upon hearing that name out loud, out of the blue, I became dumbfounded for a brief moment. By Satoshi, did she mean the student who transferred out last year? No, that couldn't be. Rena had tried to cover it up by saying he was transferred, but Oishi-san told me quite clearly that he was missing. He was the student who sat by my seat up until last year. He believed to be demoned away by Oyashiro-sama's curse. I didn't know the details of this disappearance. The aunt that lived with him was killed the night of the Watanagashi by a drug addict, and not long after that he suddenly vanished, and is now missing. That Satoshi and I were what? My gaze fell under the bat in my hands. Could it be Satoko Hojo? It was a bit difficult to see, but that was what was written on the white tape at the end of the bat. I see. So this was Satoshi's bat.
ああ。これ、サトシのバットだったんだな。誰も使ってなかったんで、ちょっと借りたんだよ。いいだろ、それくらい。
そんなことじゃないの。
The way Rena said that made it seem that this bat was something that should never be touched. Like it was some sort of offering at the shrine or a memento of the deceased. I could only stand there perplexed and unable to respond. Rena continued speaking without waiting for a reply.
サトシ君の時とどうしてそんなにまで同じなの？
Rena was talking about more than just the bat belonging to Satoshi.
サトシ君もそうだった。野球チームには入ってたけど、本当は野球なんか好きじゃない人だったのに。
それが俺とどう関係が？
サトシ君もある日突然バットを持ち歩き始めたの。チームに入ってただけでスポーツなんかしない人だったのに。
What about it? I closed my mouth before I could say it out loud. Listen carefully, Keiichi. Rena is trying to tell us something important.
サトシ君もね、ある日突然一人で登校するようになったの。ケイイチ君みたいに。そしてね、ある日突然素振りの練習を始めたの。ケイイチ君みたいに。そしてね、ある日突然バットを持ち歩くようになったの。ケイイチ君みたいに。そしてね、ある日突然。
Then one day he suddenly what? Rena had swallowed her words. Rena's sudden silence brought a hush back to the surrounding area. It was then that I could finally digest the content of the entire conversation. She was saying that my chain of actions were exactly the same as Satoshi's. What was the meaning of this? Up until now, I'd forgotten all about Satoshi. I had never paid much attention to him in the first place. Not only that, I didn't even know anything about what he'd done. My actions today should have been my own creation, after all the planning I'd done. But they had been the exact same as Satoshi's. Then Satoshi, no. More importantly, if both Satoshi and I had acted the same, then there was a really good possibility that what happened after would be the same.
レナ、ある日突然、サトシはどうしたんだよ。
Rena knew. She knew that what became of Satoshi. No, forget about what happened to a guy in the past. Rena knew what was going to happen to me.
答えろよ、レナ。サトシはどうしたんだよ。
With that, I grabbed Rena's shoulder violently and forcibly turned around to face me. As I faced her, I felt a jolt travel through my entire body.
言ったよね、ケイチ君。
It was the person I didn't know. At least, definitely wasn't the Rena Ryugu I'd been talking to up until now. The voice just now didn't have a trace of the trembling or emotion that it had before. The amount of regret I felt for turning her around so carelessly was underpassed. That gaze that pierced like the cold needle, the smile on her face that invoked an image of having been carved out by a knife. Chills went down my spine, and my mind froze under a layer of rime. Both Rena Ryugu's eyes had pierced through mine, leaving me unable to look away. As if to remind me of the fear from that time before, Rena brought her face close to mine, so close that I could feel her breath. Her face had filled my entire field of vision. Then her sharply shaped lips grew even sharper, like the curve of a crescent moon. She grinned.
言ったよね、ケイチ君。
After a short pause, Rena repeated the same words again.
サトシ君はね、転校しちゃったの。
Transferred meaning what? What Rena meant must have been some sort of new definition of transfer. That I was not previously not aware of. My throat and lips dried up, and I couldn't even acknowledge what I just heard. All I could do was swallow down my own saliva. It would seem that Rena had saw that as a nod. She pulled her gaze back and spryly stepped back 2 or 3 paces. As she did, my legs gave out and I fell to my knees pathetically. Rena and me on my knees underneath her emotionless smile. That had to be a very odd sight indeed. Seeing me in a pathetic state, she neither scoffed at me nor held out her hand. But I could neither stand nor escape her gaze shooting through my eyes. There was undoubtedly a metal bat in my hand. But right now, it was useless to me. I was like a fly caught in her web. Heavy sweat beaded all over my body as I could feel it dripping from my skin.
しないよね、ケイチ君は。
Rena finally released me from the cage of time after what felt like an eternity. But her question was missing something important and was incredibly vague. Once again, I swallowed hard and urging her on.
何をだよ。
What did she not want me to do?
転校。
「 Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. We're so close. I can almost taste it. But thank you all for joining me. I'm Daaro for this episode of Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 1, Onikakushi. You can feel the end drawing near. What will happen? I don't know. But Rena has told us some very, very crucial information. That Keiichi and Satoshi are the same with the metal bat, and told us in her demon-like stature, don't transfer out. So we'll find out what that means next time. This is Daaro. Have a good night, guys.